We have more for your ears only. I'm Eddie Robinson.
I'm David Alpern with this quote from the news. Of course you can have it all. And don't be frightened. You can always change your mind. I know. I've had 4 careers and 3 husbands. That was journalist, novelist, screenwriter, and director Nora Ephron's 1996 commencement advice at Wellesley College. Best known for romantic comedies, including Sleepless in Seattle and When Harry Met Sally. Ephron died last week at age 71 after a long-term struggle with leukemia. Now this.
Good evening. I'm Will McAvoy. This is Newsnight. I'm beginning this newscast by apologizing to the American people for the failure of this program during the time I've been in charge of it. The reason we failed isn't a mystery. We took a dive for the ratings. I'm quitting the circus and switching teams. I'm going with the guys who are getting creamed.
All my life, I've been trying to put the Ewing name back on top. I worry about Christopher and John Ross.
I'll always be J.R. Sonathan no matter what.
I don't want them to be like us.
It's Back to the Future on the home screen this summer. Aaron Sorkin brings more than a hint of his West Wing ways and philosophy to HBO's The Newsroom, about a play-it-safe TV anchor who suddenly finds himself selling conscience and conscientiousness. Then there's a much-anticipated remake of the 1978 primetime soap Dallas, with several original cast members, including Larry Hagman as J.R., Patrick Duffy as Bobby, and Linda Gray as Sue Ellen. Not to mention, though how could we avoid it, the FX show Anger Management, with Charlie Sheen making not-so-subtle references to the wild ways that got him canned last season from the long-running CBS hit 2.5 Men.
That's Charlie Sheen. We'll fix it later.
Yeah.
To critique these primetime series for your ears only, we're pleased to have Troy Patterson, television critic at Slate, film critic at Spin Magazine, and an adjunct at the Columbia University Journalism School. Welcome to our program.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Let's start with The Newsroom. How does it compare with Sorkin's West Wing and earlier screen dissections of TV journalism like broadcast news?
Well, I'd say that if you're a Sorkin fan, for the sake of Sorkin's snappy, crisp, walking, talking dialogue, then this series will satisfy that demand. So it's like the West Wing in that respect, but I don't happen to think it's as good. And so for me, it's more on the level of Sorkin's Studio 60, his canceled one-season NBC show from 5 years ago about backstage at the Saturday Night Live type sketch show.
What really is the show's message, and what about complaints that it's too preachy?
Well, I'm not sure what the show's message is, and I think that one of the reasons that the show isn't sharper is that it's a bit confused about that itself. It kind of toggles between being something that's like lighthearted and moves like an old-fashioned sort of like screwball romantic comedy from the 30s and sort of making sort of like weighty pronouncements about the way that news should be reported, and it's not always the most elegant fit.
How do you feel about the way the news they cover is drawn from actual recent events?
That to me feels like an error. How do you feel? I'm part of the difficulty I'm having discussing this is I'm kind of like worried about a spoiler alert. So I would suggest to your listeners to pay attention to the end of the 4th episode of this show when there's it's kind of a moment involving a news event that is potentially in quite bad taste. Some people will argue.
I already tend to think there's too much confusion between fact and fiction on television. But let's switch gears and talk about Charlie Sheen's Anger Management, where, according to FX, the show was the most watched series premiere in the network's history, with 5.5 million viewers. Is it the show itself, do you think, playing off Sheen's past, or the possibility he'll actually melt down and blow up again?
That's a great question. I would say that, I'm going to have to guess that a lot of that huge audience comprised people who were looky-loos, who were just curious to see what would happen there, just as Ashton Kutcher's debut replacing Charlie Sheen on 2.5 Men got like a huge first-night audience. It'll be interesting to see how many people come back next week and if that number holds up.
Also watching for new off-screen scandal are the network's execs and insurance companies. Do you sense they have some secret hope the worst will happen to keep viewers tuned in, whatever the quality of the show itself?
No. I think that, the remarkable part about the deal that Charlie Sheen made with FX, as I understand it, is that the if this show lasts for 10 episodes, then the network has to buy another 90, which means that it's this great, awesome, long-term sort of like syndication deal kind of thing. So I think everyone's sort of like rooting for a nice, steady, even performance in terms of both Charlie Sheen's on and off-screen life.
Finally, let's focus on Dallas, back from the long dead. You call it a lurid Camelot on the range. Talk briefly about the nostalgia for the show and why or how it seemed to capture such a global following, what you label a soap opera raised to the status of an institution.
I mean, J.R. Ewing was on the cover of Time about 25 years ago. I think that the question is, what is the secret of Dallas? I think it sort of like captured both the zeitgeist of the 80s and sort of it was one of the first shows to recognize the sort of like the cultural need for the nighttime soap opera. That kind of sort of like melodrama played on a big bold screen with some kind of soapy treatment of adult themes.
And the idea of people you love to hate. How are the veterans of the original Dallas holding up as you see it?
They're looking pretty well. I mean, especially Larry Hagman. He's having, he's a fantastic actor, and he's really enjoying hamming it up. There's nothing quite like the pleasure of watching a skilled veteran go over the top. And I will say that Patrick Duffy as Bobby Ewing still looks sort of noble and suffering, and Linda Gray is as catty as ever, as her role requires.
Troy Patterson is television critic at Slate, film critic at Spin Magazine, and an adjunct at the Columbia University Journalism School.
Quote from the news, "Sorry I couldn't carry the ball over the finish line, but man, did I try." That was Ann Curry's farewell as co-host of the NBC Today Show, which is under increasing pressure from ABC's Good Morning America. Curry was replaced by today's 9 a.m. host, Savannah Guthrie.
Next, the new old Gershwins on Broadway, for your ears only.